All right, so welcome back, everybody. So what I want to do is go through, I think, 2 or 3 more slides. Shouldn't be, maybe 10, 15 more minutes, if I can keep my discussion minimal here, to talk about project delivery models. So you can see here in this one, I still include I don't have everything. I hope you guys can see it all right. I still include the construction manager as agent. In this particular model is that below here, you can see a couple things. One is I continue for you to compare the construction manager's role. Most often is not involved in a design bid build situation, but that's not to say that it can't be. So I bring in the construction management as an agent role, just so you understand that there's a possibility the owner might hire an agent to represent their interests, because many owners don't have the wherewithal or understand construction and engineering and the construction process. More often than not, the owner will look to the builder or the general contractor to provide that function, right? To provide that construction management advice, if you will. So the agency of the builder is as the construction manager. But I wanted you to know too that you might see models, or you might be involved with different delivery models that would include an outside third-party construction manager. So that's why I kind of include that here with the relationship with the owner. And that it can be included with here, the design bid build model down here, the linear one as well. And then there's a new one that I introduced, and I'm going to try and bring it up here a little bit closer. Where's my zoom view? Zoom. I don't know if I can capture it all. But you can see here, there's a lot of stacked stuff. It's kind of getting complicated, and I don't want to make it too complicated for you. But if you see here from the left to right towards the bottom, and I can't really go any lower, but I'm looking at the sequencing at the very bottom here. If you can follow my cursor, and the changes that I'm sharing here, you can compare to the top line, which is your typical design bid build. And so in my note, I've got timeline below for design bid build and what we call a GC/CM delivery model. So I'm introducing what is called GC/CM delivery model, or general contractor / construction manager. And really what that is speaking to is, as I was sharing with you earlier, you can have a construction manager as an agent for the owner, or you can have a construction manager party as part of the builder. Within the builder's business is the construction management component. The GCCM delivery model is just that, right? It's the owner. I'll try and revert back here, go back to the outside zoom here. It's the owner who, if you would allow me, I would take this and I would bring this down here and place it inside the box of the builder. Okay, now you can't see the builder's box, but in effect, the construction manager and the builder are one. And so that model there, as I scroll down, is this bottom line model, or what we call the general contractor / construction manager delivery model. And there's benefit to having the owner. I want you to think about this. There's benefit to having the owner have a third-party outside construction manager that's not part of the general contractor. And then there's certainly some benefit to having the construction manager work as and be part of the builder, right? Works within the builder's company. And so there is not that third-party representation. So there's good things about that, and there may not be some great things about that. Not saying that it's all bad, but I want you to kind of think about what might be those cases, and your readings may speak to them as well. But going back to this bottom line here, let me get back here, view, zoom. Going back to this bottom line, we're speaking about the general contractor / construction management model, and that the construction manager as the agent now is part of the builder. They're within the builder's company. They're part of the builder. And that is that bottom line here. And where is their value there? Well, the construction manager provides construction management expertise. Sometimes we call that constructability, right? The ability to provide advice on constructability issues, right? The ability to construct or constructability issues. So construction manager, as opposed to the architectural design element, the construction manager and constructability during pre-construction. So you can see down here this term pre-construction. During pre-construction, will work closely with the architect. This term called collaboration. Will work closely with the architect to help and support them in their design as it relates to constructability issues and other issues that you may be familiar with today. Common issues are like environmental issues, like materials that are environmentally sensitive or materials that impact the environment, right? There's a design element that might relate to constructability issues as it relates to design, as it relates to construction. And the construction management agent will speak to the constructability issues and speak to value. Is it the right material? Can it be constructed in a timely manner? Can it be constructed in a quality way? Is it as an amenity, architecturally speaking? Will it work within the environment that's being constructed? And so if you think about like an elementary school, we certainly want to use materials that are healthy to be utilized in an elementary school, because we've got children that are attending the school. Certainly want to build it safe. We want to use the materials that allow children to be safe and aren't exposed to the dangers or hazard of the construction of that building, in terms of students being occupied and not be hurt in its design. So the ability to construct the building appropriately using the quality materials and built in a way where it's less costly is a pre-construction service that a construction manager who works for a builder or a general contractor can provide and collaborate with both the owner and the architect. And so that really is what occurs in the pre-construction phase. Now you see another term, cost estimate. Well, we're evaluating costs, trying to find out the most economical ways to build. And so with the construction manager / builder working closely with the architect and the owner, there's a collaborative nature there that allows for the best design and best value. Sometimes we call that value engineering, when all those three parties get together and have that dialogue. The cost estimate then can be developed in real time as they're designing the building, and go back and forth with the owner to where the owner says, well, here's my budget. Can we build this? Architect designs it, but then the construction manager says, we can't build it because it's too expensive. Maybe we change the material, or maybe we change the way of how you design it, because then we can build it faster, better, less expensive. And so all of this goes into the cost estimate. And you can see that bar is overlapping pre-construction. So there's that interchange between design, cost estimate, and pre-construction, where all of this is getting worked out. Again, this is the general contractor / construction manager model. Now, as I move off to the right, as we develop and get closer to a final cost estimate, you can see construction services. Well, what's that? Well, construction services is the general contractor, along with the construction manager who works within the general contractor's business, allows for them now to start identifying resources that can now build the project. So we start negotiating with the best of class subcontractors, like the plumbers and electricians, and we go through a process to hire them and to make sure that we have a good team put together. Again, more people are getting involved, but it's a very collaborative process, this GCCM delivery model. So the construction services speaks to the award of contracts like subcontracts, and bringing in those experts who can deliver and build on the elementary school in our example. And then you see the bar that says contract, where now the contracts are executed, both for the general construction of the building, that is the construction manager and the general contractor get a contract from the school district, if you will, and then the general contractor / construction manager can now start awarding subcontracts to vendors and subcontractors who will then begin to build the project. And you can see the build line here at the very end, of course, then that then finishes the project. So here, if we just look at it graphically here, design, bid, build, very linear, right? Very non-collaborative, right? You've got the design component, you've got the bidding component with the contractors, then you build it. When you look at the GCCM delivery model, look at the stacking of the lines, right? Look at the stacking of design over pre-construction, and then the cost estimate over pre-construction, and then how there's much more of the stacking. You mean there's going to be a lot of stakeholders and parties involved that are collaborating. In this case, as I pan out in our view, in this case, based on our conversation, a lot of collaborative effort, right? I'm going to bring this down here because the builder is the construction manager. They all are one entity. This is the GCCM model. I skipped over a line here. This is the GCCM model. And so the owner, the architect, and the construction manager / builder are all collaborating on this bottom line here, this time frame below. And it's obvious because you can see the stackability of all of these items that are occurring at the same time during this time frame, where everyone has to collaborate and come to the best value, if you will, of what's occurring in the design and in the constructability issues that are identified in pre-construction. So that's kind of what's happening. And this is kind of where we're going with the industry, is this more GC/CM negotiated collaborative project team effort, as opposed to the typical design, bid, build that has been fairly standard for the last 25 to 30 years. Okay, this slide here is basically the, oops, it's being weird on me. What's going on here? I want to keep this slide here. I'm going to scroll down. This is a model called owner, where the owner has a direct contract with an architect and builder. This is called design build delivery model. And in this model, the architect and the builder are one. That is to say that if you had an office, that the general contractor and the architect are all underneath one umbrella. They're all working for the same company. So the architect and the builder, literally, and I worked for a company like this, project managers for construction were on one side of the hall. On the other side of the hall were the architects and the designers. They were all one company. And so we call that company a design build company, because they can design and they can build it at the same time. So I want you to take a look at this time frame, or not time frame, but timeline. And you see elements of the linear and you see elements of the stack, right? Well, the idea here is that in a design build, usually time is of the essence. That is, you have an owner. Let's say here in our elementary school example, we got the contracts out late and it's near school needs to start in the fall, and we just started construction in January. And so we have to, what we call, fast track the delivery of this project. Well, the owner of the school district hired an architect and a builder all within the same company because they wanted to fast track the construction of the project. Well, when you fast track, you can see here in the model, and I'll try and get it up a little bit closer here so you can see it. You can see here that there's a design. So the architects on one side of the hallway design, but they design up to a point where they have enough plans and specifications that they take it over to the other side of the hall and give it to the general contractor / project manager for the project. He takes those plans and he starts to build. But if you look at the timeline here, you see that the design doesn't stop, but the plans to a point then are taken across the hallway to be built. And so the design continues, but now they're building as they're designing, okay? So as they build, as they design, hence they call it design build, because we're designing and building at the same time. And now you look at the stacking here, the idea is that it saves time, right? It accelerates the schedule. And so you can see here, I have a bubble that says construction starts here. Construction starts here, they're continuing to design and information continues to get out to the job site for then they continue to build. But you can see there's a second phase here of design. So while they're wrapping up the build number one, they're eventually at some point going to begin build number 2. So design continues to design, and they build, the build number 2. So let's say, for example, this is our elementary school. Design number 1 piece might be the architect and the civil engineering are doing all the site work design. They get it up to about 50% of where they have plans and specs. They give it to the contractor, the construction manager. They take that information and they start to build the footings and the civil work and all the utilities and all of the groundwork to get ready for the elementary school. And they continue to design that, and they continue to wrap up that work to where the design number 2 is actually the school itself, the foundation and the building and the structure and all the bones and the pieces and the cladding and the roofing and all of that, right? So all of that starts to be designed. So by the time that the builder is done with all the site work, they're ready to start the foundation. And that's where they start build number 2, because they've been able to design the foundation, but they don't have all the structure built. So they finish the design and get all the structure built. The contractor / construction manager during build number 2 are building while they're designing. And you can see it carries forward to where then they, finish the building and they're done. So it's an acceleration, right? The design build is typically used when a project needs to be built quickly, or the owner desires to have their building built quickly because maybe they want to get a product to market and they've got to build their manufacturing facility very fast so they can start to build their product and get it to the marketplace. Design build allows for an acceleration, or what we call fast tracking, of the construction of the project. So one thing I want you to keep in mind is that this is a very risky project delivery model, because you can design and the contractor / builder can build, but if you design too fast or you made a mistake during the design and they build it, what's going to happen? They're going to have to correct what they've already built. And if that's the case, that's going to delay the project, and that's going to defeat the purpose of fast tracking, right? So in these models, you've got to be absolutely certain that your design is right before they start to build it. Because when you're designing and building at the same time, there's excessive risk to that, okay? So that's one thing to keep in mind when you think about the design build model. All right, so now I'm going to snap back to our regular view here. And I'm just going to bring to light a couple things that I want you to think about. I'm going to bring up close here. As you watch the, oops, it's too close, sorry. Go back to 100%. As you watch the videos in LinkedIn Learning, you're going to see a couple discussions about the iron triangle. And the iron triangle is really essentially, if you look at the triangle, each side of the triangle represents scope, time, or cost. And that is to say that everything being equal, your scope of work, your time to build that scope of work, and the cost to build that scope of work is all relative to each other. If the scope of work is to expand, more than likely it's going to take more time to build that scope of work, and it's going to increase the cost. So you could see if you took a segment of scope and expanded and increased that line, in order for the triangle to say somewhat equilateral, right? Everything else is relative, so everything else would be impacted. Same if you were to reverse it. You reduce the scope more, relatively speaking, the time it'll take will be lessened, and the cost to build that scope of work would be minimized. The idea with the iron triangle to keep in mind is that scope, time, and cost are all relative, okay? They're all relative. And so when you watch the video, keep that in mind as they speak to scope, time, and cost. The other thing that you'll see that they talk about is the three-legged stool. And I bring these up because I think they're just what I would call like little easy to remember knickknacks, right? That speak to relationships of what we think about as construction managers managing a construction project. So for example, the three-legged stool is going to be another piece that you'll view in one of the LinkedIn videos where, the stool cannot, three legs, it needs three legs to be able to be stabilized, right? If you lose or one of the legs is cut short or doesn't work, then it's unstable. And so the project in and of itself is going to be kind of unstable, if you will. So if you minimize quality, it's going to impact potentially the safety required that might be needed to build that piece of the project. And then of course, then the productivity is minimized, right? So the other is the opposite, right? You increase safety in the method of maybe how you produce or construct a particular part of the project. It's going to increase the quality of the work that's done, because everyone who's building that piece of the construction project will feel safe in the construction of that piece, right? So the quality will be improved because people can feel relaxed because they're safe in doing the work. And then of course, the combination of the quality and safety piece means that everyone's going to be, happier. They're going to be more productive in performing the work, right? So there's this relationship between these three pieces that are part of the three-legged stool. I only bring this up because these items that we speak to in both the iron triangle here and the three-legged stool is that they're relevant, right? They're relevant kind of on a larger scale of looking at a construction project and thinking about these items when there are decisions that need to be made on the project, right? But certainly we think about when managing a construction project, there's a scope of work that we're addressing, that there's an amount of time that we plan to do that work, and that there's a cost relevant to the work that's being done. So there you see those elements and how they relate in the iron triangle. Again, another piece to kind of have a recollection and to remember kind of these important items. When we get to the three-legged stool, same thing, right? There's got to be a way to think about quality of construction in the way we do the work and in the quality of the work that's performed. But we want it done in a safe way. We don't want it done quickly. If it's done too fast, we might be not doing it in a safe manner. And so we think of quality and safety, but kind of all across when we think of quality and safety is, are we being productive? That is, are we able to provide a quality product, do it safely? So we're monitoring our trades, making sure they're doing the work in a safe way, but in a quality way, because if they are, more than likely they're being productive, right? That they're meeting the schedules, they're meeting the timeframes that we had developed in the construction schedule. So these are just kind of, like I said, little knickknacks to remember these things, and they are included part of your LinkedIn video watching. Okay. That's what I have tonight for our discussion. This has all been recorded, so I'll be able to capture the recording and I'll post it in the first week, so you can go back and check it out again if you want to watch it again, or go to certain segments if you missed a little bit. So don't worry if you were taking notes. If you're just listening in, you'll have the opportunity to go back and watch it one more time. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and does anybody have any questions? Okay. If you don't have any questions, add them into the chat. I'm going to right now stop the record.